Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Are you shocked by these figures?
Well, I'm shocked in the sense that the figures are as they have been reported, but I guess we had a trailing of this last year. It's surprising, I think, in one sense that the number has been revised up so heavily for last year's total. And it's quite clear that on these sorts of levels, and as you quite rightly pointed out, it's not the net migration figure we're also interested in. It's also the level of absolute inputs, 1.2 million. That is very difficult, I think, to sustain, given we appear to be doing this year on year on year. It is unclear how we go forward as a country on that basis.
Isn't it a bit odd that Suella Braverman is intervening and sort of casting herself, I don't know, as some kind of opposition figure? She has been the Home Secretary. Why didn't she do something about this?
Well, it's a very valid question, and I think that's a question to put to her, to say, well, you were in charge for some time of the department. You have some say on this issue, obviously, in terms of what was happening. Why didn't you act? But I think there's a bigger problem here. It's that we don't really have a proper sort of grown-up debate about the benefits and the costs of migration. It's quite clear there are benefits to migration. It's quite clear the reason why a lot of these visas are being handed out is, number one, it's for our higher education sector. Number two, it's for economic purposes. And number three, it's obviously for those legal refugee routes that we've created. But there are also costs. There's a cost of infrastructure. How do we support this number of people coming in year on year on year, even if they are paying taxes in some cases? How does that lead to support? And of course, there's the integration aspect. If we are bringing in a lot of these people, and what's particularly noticeable is the origin of most of these people now is from outside of the European Union, which is a complete reversal of pre-Brexit. Can we really, are we right to say we can integrate such large numbers of people in one fell swoop?
Well, did the people who voted in numbers for Brexit not appreciate that this might well be the result of what they voted for?
Well, I don't think that was ever explained to anyone, was it? I don't think, that anyone ever said, by the way, if you vote to control your borders, it's going to, A, lead to a massive increase in immigration, and number two, the sorts of migrants and where they come from will change as well. But that goes back to my point. There has not been a proper adult grown-up debate about the benefits and cost of migration, what might be happening, and whether this country, wants migrants or it doesn't. And if it doesn't want them, well, what impact does that have? And if it does want them, what impact does that have as well?
We know that a lot of visas are given to people who are willing to come to this country to do a very difficult job in the care sector. And it's a plain fact that many people in this country do not want to do those jobs, will not do them. What's the solution to that?
Well, that's part of that adult conversation, isn't it? It's about saying to people, here is the reality. This is a type of job that's on offer, a type of job that isn't being filled domestically for whatever reason. And so either you have to accept, therefore, that you've got three choices. Either you accept the job won't be done. Secondly, you accept that it will be the sorts of migrants coming in right now who do them. Or thirdly, you have to work some kind of plan, don't you, to change that base of domestic demand for it and change that. So that's part of that whole discussion, and saying to people, these are your choices. Now, let's talk about it properly.
OK, if you had the ear of Rishi Sunak, what would you suggest he does first of all?
Well, I think he's got the numbers are just too great to sustain at the moment, because unless you're spending the money on infrastructure and integration, you can't cope with that sort of number. So really, he needs to find a very quick way to cutting down these numbers.
But what is that way?
I think the number one obvious way is dependency visas. A lot of visas have been given out both for students and for work permit people to bring large numbers of family members with them. That's an obvious first point to look at cutting, basically, because that will reduce the numbers straight off. I think that's your first place. It's the easiest cut of all to make.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Dr. Alan Mendoza, Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society.